Hey everybody, welcome to today's session. I'm Ben Moser, Senior Product Manager at Collibra, and today I'm going to be taking you through an introduction of Collibra and specifically the Data Intelligence Cloud. I'm lucky enough to be working on a lot of really cool products here at Collibra, but I'm excited to spend time today to give you a general introduction to the Collibra platform. And when we're talking about Collibra, there are a lot of different things that we can go into when it comes to the product and the different features that we offer. But it all really starts with data. Data is the both cause and solution of a lot of problems that exist in organizations today. We all know that data can be extremely valuable to organizations. We hear about the most highly technical organizations using it to make good decisions and to drive higher revenue. But it also can be very difficult to use data in the way that we want to. And there are a lot of different aspects of the data environment that are underpinning those issues that some companies come up against. And one of the biggest ones is the explosion of the volume of data in the world today. So we're all familiar with the concepts of big data, but not everybody is familiar with how quickly the data environment is actually expanding. So we can look at research firms like IDC and the fact that they predict the data sphere to increase by 4 to 5 times over the next few years. And that expansion is not going to stop after 2025. It's going to continue to get bigger. So being able to parse through those extremely large volumes of information is becoming more and more difficult for our clients and people across multiple different industries. And while people are trying to parse through what can be a quagmire of information in their sources, we also have to live in a world in which privacy is paramount. So you may want to use data to drive your decision making and to drive better outcomes within your organization, but we have to keep track of things like privacy regulations. So as we're building out reports and as we're building out new machine learning algorithms, we have to take into consideration things like GDPR and CCPA. And this isn't just for face value. Companies are running into serious fines when they fall outside of the lines of these privacy regulations, and they're becoming even more strict and more stringent as time goes on. You see new regulations coming out even for things like machine learning algorithms in the US federal government, which leads into one of the last items that I'd like to talk about in terms of the data environment, which is emerging technologies. So McKinsey forecasts that AI will drive up to $5.8 trillion in annual revenue globally, and that is trillion with a T. So these emerging technologies are becoming more and more important, and taking advantage of them is no longer a differentiator from an organizational standpoint. It's something that you really need to be able to do just to be able to compete. So how do we take advantage of these emerging technologies in the context of an explosion of data volume and an increasingly important and increasingly stringent privacy environment? And if all of that weren't complicated enough, those of us working in enterprise data environments today will be more than familiar with the fact that the enterprise data environment is becoming more and more complicated and more chaotic. This is the result of years of different groups within organizations creating their own silos because they have accomplishments that they want to achieve, and they don't really want to wait for an organization-wide data practice to be set up. So now that we've gotten to 2021 and we are thinking about how we can approach these things from an organizational perspective, we have to address the fact that data landscapes are complex and siloed across the enterprise. There can be many different technologies, there can be many different types of data, there can be many different organizational groups that are involved in these different silos. So coming to terms with all of this information and trying to drive the value that I was discussing earlier with things like advanced algorithms and really any sort of analytics in general that can help drive decision-making is definitely a large problem to overcome. And that's really what we're focused on here at Collibra. We want to help organizations who are struggling with the data. And it's not hard to understand, and I'm sure many of you who are watching this will identify and empathize with the reasons organizations struggle with data. And they're based off of the things that I've been talking about so far. But the numbers that actually come out of these issues are sometimes surprising. So we see things like 32% of companies report being able to realize tangible and measurable value value from data. 32%, when it comes to something as valuable as data and as important as data, that is not a very high number. And of course, we all want to be a part of that 32%, and we want to push that up to 100%. But obviously, the indication here is that there are, as I've mentioned before, barriers to be overcome. Even if we have data, we aren't necessarily driving tangible and measurable value from that data. There are a lot of problems that can come up and stop us from doing that. Additionally, only 27% of respondents say data and analytics projects produce highly actionable insights and recommendations. So this is very similar to the 32%, but really, we hear all of these things about analytics, and even as we move forward in the analytics space, about things like machine learning, but only 1 in 4 organizations are actually accomplishing the goals that they set out to accomplish and producing actionable insights from their analytics work. That is definitely a number that needs to increase if we want to drive more productive organizations in the future. And this is all underlined by what we view as an incredibly important issue to solve at Collibra, which is that only 1 in 3 firms actually trust their data enough to use it effectively and derive value from it. We see this all of the time with the clients that we work with. We'll be investigating a report that was made on revenue regression or churn prediction or something of that nature. And immediately the conversation falls into a discussion of how can we trust the data that's being used to create this report. And understanding how data gets to where it is and how it's being transformed throughout your environment is a really big part of this trust aspect. But we'll go into more details on how we can help build trust in data using Collibra as we move forward through the presentation. But the key takeaway here, as we've been going over for the last few slides, is that organizations are struggling with data. Even if they have data, it's not always straightforward to turn it into an actionable insight. And that's really what we're focused on solving here at Collibra. So how are we approaching this? How are we making it easier for organizations to utilize data in the way that's going to drive revenue and positive business outcomes? Well, that's what we think about every day on the product team here at Collibra. And this is what has led to the development of the Collibra Data Intelligence Cloud, which is the system of record for data. So the Data Intelligence Cloud creates a single view across all of your sources and all of your applications. And this allows users to understand the context necessary to use data with confidence and drive real value. So at all times, we're trying to help users understand their entire environment by contextualizing their view of information, whether that information is the data itself or the tools that are using that data, such as Tableau, Power BI, Databricks, or any other sort of analytics tool. And we'll go a little bit deeper into what some of those integrations look like. It's not all about data. And this is one of the really important aspects of our product development approach here at Collibra. We can develop a tool that allows you to understand your data in a straightforward way and that exposes all of the context around your data sources, your ETL pipelines, everything like that. But what we're really focused on is helping the people within your organization understand and use data in a more effective way. Whether that's a chief data officer who wants to understand the overall environment that exists within their data landscape, whether that's a data steward who's building out definitions and contextual connections between different data assets, whether that's a data engineer who's creating pipelines that are developing the production data sets that are being used in analytics tools, or whether it's a privacy steward who's assigning data policies that define how different pieces of information can be used within the organization. Collibra is designed to be utilized by all of your users across your organization so that we can start speaking the same language about data. Because when we talk about context, when we talk about data understanding, we have to start with a foundation of the people who are actually using and interacting with that data. So when we talk about the Collibra Data Intelligence Cloud, we can talk about the features and functionalities. And of course, we'll go into more detail on that throughout the presentation. What we're really building out is a tool that unites people, processes, technology, and data in one place so that we can understand everything that's happening in our environment and speak about it and execute on it with confidence across the team. So how do we actually do that? What are the tools that we're using to build out this contextual and intelligent view of data within your system? Well, we break that down into a number of different products currently within Collibra. So taking a look at this view of the architecture of Collibra from a very high level, the green box in the middle of the screen that you're seeing here encapsulates most of the products and features at a very high level, again, that we're developing and delivering right now at Collibra within the Data Intelligence Cloud. So that encapsulates tools like data catalog, lineage, and data quality, data privacy tools that help you put privacy context around the data that exists within your systems, governance tools to establish ownership and reference data policies, and an underlying platform that helps all of these different tools interact within one unified interface. All of these different tools work together to solve a lot of the problems that we've been talking about throughout this presentation. Understanding data in a contextual way, being able to trust the information that you're viewing in any situation, and being able to uncover the context of the information across your entire environment. And when I say information, I don't mean just the data in your environment. That's a really important part of it, but I also mean the way that that data is being used across your environment. Because we believe that understanding leads to confident execution. So being able to contextualize data, see how it's being used, and see what privacy policies and what different governance policies are applied to it are really helping our users understand and use their data effectively to drive some of the results that you see at the top of this screen here. So with that high-level overview of Collibra in mind, let's dive into some of the actual products and features that we're building out from our product development standpoint. And we'll start out with the Collibra Data Catalog, one of the products that we were talking about in the previous slide. And the Collibra Data Catalog is really the only enterprise data catalog built for the way that your business works. We have developed a catalog that allows you to not only understand a unified view of all of your enterprise data assets without moving any of the data, but it also allows you to understand how that data is being used and how that data interrelates and interacts with other data within your environment. In addition to this, general context and understanding of the data and the use cases. We see on the screen right now a Tableau workbook represented within Collibra that can be viewed in the context of the data that produced it, from the ETL pipelines all the way back to the source systems. But on top of all this information, we also build and have built a trusted data interface through which you can assign things like privacy policies to the data itself so that users can understand how the privacy landscape and how regulations like GDPR and CCPA apply to specific pieces of data that they're interested in using. And all of this context we have seen again and again at our clients improves productivity and accelerates times to insights. This allows our users to find the data that's appropriate to them in relatively short order and develop and deliver on things like the workbooks that you see here on customer sales insights, allows them to find the appropriate data sets to build a new machine learning algorithm or to build a new analytical review of something like churn or anything along those lines. So the Collibra Data Catalog really gives you that snapshot and understanding of your data landscape and the tools that are actually using that data. In addition to Collibra Data Catalog, we also have Collibra Data Governance, another one of the products that we saw a few moments ago. And the governance tool and the governance platform really allows users to understand the data that exists within your enterprise at a deep level and assign things like ownership structures and what we usually refer to as guardrails around the use of that data. So it allows us to not only declare who owns individual pieces of information and who is responsible for that as different assets, it also allows us to develop things like common vocabularies using business term definitions and reference data so that we're all speaking about data in the same way. We don't have different areas within the organization, different teams, different silos, like we were talking about earlier, talking about something like churn or customer lifetime value in multiple different ways. using Collibra data governance, we can all start speaking the same language, whether we're a chief data officer, whether we're a data engineer, or whether we're an everyday business user. We can all use these tools in order to collaborate across the business and establish a common understanding of what's going on within our environment. Collibra data quality is a tool that we have spent a lot of time focusing on over the last year here at Collibra. But when we talk about Collibra data quality and we talk about data quality in general, really what we're talking about is trust in your data with predictive data quality. In order to understand and trust the actual information that you're reviewing, whether it's in a report or whether it's just in a data source itself, you have to actually understand what's going on within the data itself. And with Collibra data quality, we can auto-generate rules to continuously find things like outliers, anomalies, patterns and relationships in the data, so that you can understand on a day-to-day basis, and even at a more granular level, how data is changing within your environment, and if things are going outside of a specified threshold. When things do go outside of those specified thresholds, you can also do things like set alarms or alerts that will notify the appropriate parties. So for instance, if we see the data quality metrics on an individual data source go slightly below their accepted thresholds, an alert might be sent to a data engineer to investigate the root cause and see what's happened. Perhaps a new data engineer on the team has slightly changed an ETL process or removed a column from a source table, and that's caused all sorts of downstream issues. With Collibra data quality, along with what we'll talk about in a moment, Collibra data lineage, you can understand and dive into those processes and problems incredibly easily and locate the root cause of the problems immediately through Collibra interfaces. And this streamlines and accelerates data and analytics processes. By understanding and trusting the data that you're looking at, you remove one of the barriers that we were talking about, which causes so much consternation among people who are trying to use data effectively. And that's trusting that the data that you have at your fingertips is actually going to draw useful and accurate and meaningful conclusions. This also has really interesting aspects and applications in the AI and ML world. One of the things that we've been talking about recently and presenting to clients is the ability to use data quality as an indicator of data drift in an analytics, advanced analytics and machine learning interface. So one of the biggest aspects of machine learning and ensuring that the algorithms that you're using remain of high quality is making sure that the data that trains them remains of very high quality. Well, with Collibra data quality and its advanced data checks, and its advanced ways of understanding how data changes and goes outside of potentially boundaries on a day-to-day basis, we can ensure that our algorithms are remaining consistent, and we can ensure that we're missing or avoiding the idea of data drift, which can be so detrimental to machine learning engineers on a day-to-day basis today. So I mentioned Collibra data lineage a moment ago, and this is another product within Collibra that makes the understanding of data, the context around data, and the trust that we can have in data that much stronger. So the Collibra data lineage tool is a native automated business and technical lineage tool. What we're viewing on the screen right now in this screenshot is a view of Collibra's technical lineage. And this is an interface that shows lineage that has been automatically parsed from source systems. So we actually have crawlers that go through the source code of your ETL processes, remove or at least understand the relevant information, and can show all of the transformations that are being carried out in a simplified interface like the one that we're seeing today. In many cases, the applications that we see in customer environments look exactly like this screenshot. We have a branching out tree from a source report or a critical data element. And with Collibra data lineage, we can trace where the data is being sourced all the way back to the leaves of that tree and where the data is being sourced in its original format. This is incredibly important, not only for understanding the algorithm itself and for trusting its output, but it's really important from a regulatory reporting standpoint as well. Being able to follow and kind of unravel the thread of information, starting with your critical data elements and data reports, inputs and taking them all the way back to the source is really important. And not only can you see the lineage itself, but you can actually see those transforms. We parse through your ETL code in a number of popular SQL dialects, and we actually surface that information to you through the Collibra interface as well, so that when you're analyzing this lineage, you can see exactly how the data was transformed, so that you can develop that trust from top to bottom across your entire environment and ensure accurate, complete, and trustworthy data is used to drive business decisions. The last product that we'll touch on is Collibra Data Privacy. So I've mentioned multiple times throughout this presentation that the regulatory landscape dictates much of what we can and can't do with data in our environments. And Collibra Data Privacy is designed to really encapsulate those aspects that are so important to our not only data privacy stewards and chief data protection officers, but also to our consumers. So the data privacy tool takes a proactive approach to privacy policies and allows you to do things like govern and operationalize privacy policies, as I was mentioning, attaching them directly to the data sources represented within the Collibra catalog, so that a user using a specific data source can understand exactly what privacy regulations and policies apply or don't apply to that data that's being used. This allows us to scale compliance across multiple regulations, whether it's GDPR, CCPA, or any of the other emerging regulations that exist across the world. And by doing this and encapsulating this privacy information in the wider context of the Collibra Data Intelligence Cloud, we can really understand fully how we can and can't use data. So you'll often hear terms like data democratization, which is an incredibly important concept. We want to get information and data into as many hands as possible, but we also want to make sure it's done in a safe way. And Collibra Data Privacy allows us to do that. So we've gone through a number of different products offered by Collibra as a part of the Collibra Data Intelligence Cloud. And all of these tools work together to connect to your data ecosystem and give you that full contextualized picture of your information across the data sources themselves, the tools that use data, and the external tools such as privacy policy registers that are so important to understanding and using data in the appropriate way. All of these different integrations and all of these different tools are designed to help you understand data and use it in an effective way. By contextualizing and increasing visibility, we believe that we can enable you to make the right business decisions based on data rather than based on flipping a coin. In order to build out these connections to your entire data ecosystem, we have a real focus internally at Collibra on building out as many connection points as possible. Throughout the presentation, I've talked about the importance of context in understanding your data and environment so you can empower yourself and your users to make the right decisions. Well, a huge part of that is making sure that we have the right information at our fingertips. Collibra ensures that this is the case with certified connectors to common data sources and systems. We see a number of different major systems that Collibra has connections with at the bottom of the screen here, but this is only a drop in the pail of the connectors that Collibra has built out to both legacy and cutting edge systems so that we can ensure both your data and your analytics can be brought in and represented within Collibra in an effective way. In addition to sourcing information from data sources themselves, we also want to make sure, as I've mentioned, that you can understand how that data is being used. And in many cases, that data is being used with business intelligence tools like Tableau, Power BI, and Looker. So in addition to bringing in data and ETL pipelines and other lineage information, we also bring in the relevant information from these different tools. So you can visualize exactly how your data is being used and follow that usage all the way back to your source systems. In addition to all of those different connectors, we also have an unbelievable partner program that allows us to build out these connections and build out new technology solutions, both with our technology partners, such as Google Cloud, Snowflake, Tableau, Databricks, Secupy, and Amazon Web Services, and with our services partners. So, of course, it's not all about household names, although there are a lot of household names on here. So when we're looking at services partners, not only do we work with some of the largest services partners in the world, like Accenture, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, we also have partnerships with people like First San Francisco partner, Lucid Technologies, who can develop some specific solutions that have shown great success with our customer base. Finally, in addition to all of the integrations that we have with both data sources and BI and analytics providers, all of the partnerships we have with both technology and services partners, we also have an unbelievable slate of supporting services to ensure customer success. This is encapsulated by things like our education department, where Collibra University offers users the ability to learn more about not only the Collibra tools, but also data governance and data intelligence on a wider basis. We have great professional services support that can come in and help you implement the tools and the solutions that you want to build with Collibra. We have things like value consulting and enterprise adoption to make sure that as you're getting started with Collibra, you start off on the right track and deliver the first initial POCs in an efficient way. We've talked a lot about Collibra today, and this was a good introduction to some of the products, features, and supporting aspects of Collibra that make the data intelligence cloud so valuable to our users. But we know that this is just scratching the surface. If you want to learn more about the Collibra Data Intelligence Cloud, you can register for a test drive to actually try out the product itself at collibra.com/testdriveinfo. You can request a live demo at collibra.com/demo to see the product in action without actually getting your hands on it. Or you can continue the conversation in the Data Citizens community at datacitizens.collibra.com to engage not only with Collibra employees like myself, but also fellow followers of Collibra. So with that, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this introduction to the Collibra Data Intelligence Cloud.